into growth enhancing kind of policies by financing SMEs and all of that. What that basically do is that you are going to have inconsistent monetary policy, because you are giving out loan at single digit, but your MPR is almost at double digits. And that will cause more issues within the economy in terms of disciplinary issues that will be inflationary. And that's why in period where you are increasing MPR, you see inflation also going down, because and such kind of things happening means some sitting down with the fiscal authority to resolve. I'll end on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let's give all our speakers a very big round of applause. Thank you for all these points. As I said, I'm not going to attempt to, to summarize. I'm sure we all hear. So what I want to do is to allow the audience to react. 10 minutes for questions and answers, and in 3-4 minutes, I'll just round up. Okay? Thank you. Prof.
Thank you very much.
It's 1 minute per person. We don't have the time, so quick. So.
Thank you, I listened very attentively to Dr. Abdul Salam. A very insightful, informative representation. Now, I believe as an insider in the bank, he would agree that one major challenge that the previous CBN administration had was the issue of fiscal dominance, a situation by which the fiscal authorities take independent fiscal decisions and actions, arrives at a fiscal deficit target without any reference to the monetary authority. And then, meanwhile, the fiscal authority does not have enough revenue to implement expansive, gigantic budgets. And then, because of the compromised independence of the bank, the monetary authority is running helter-skelter to finance the deficits. And so the question I would like to ask is this. In light of the public pronouncements of the governor that he would stick, or that the bank would stick to the primary mandate, no development financing, in relation to what Professor Bright has said. And now, what is the current situation? Is central bank not financing fiscal deficits again? And if you say no, it's not, how is the government financing its huge fiscal deficits? We know that the political will to allow central bank independence is not there at all. And so I want you to enlighten us a bit on the current situation in relation to fiscal dominance. Has it ended under the current regime? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm just still going to go around. I think I'll come to the speakers. I'll give you 1.5 minutes each to react after the question. Let's just get all the questions together so that we save time. So I want Professor Obada on 2, and then there's a lady there, 3, 4. Oh, I'm only on one side. There's economists are always one-handed, on the one hand. So that's why. So I have 1, 2, I think 3. Then we have 4 and 5 at the end. So maybe if we have time, we'll take more. Okay. Oh. Okay, we'll come round. Just hold on. We'll probably take 2 more. 1 minute each. It's. I know the discussion is going to be. Okay.
Thank you, Madam. Just one brief comment. So I want to. The Central Bank presentation was very nice. I read that the House of Assembly has adjusted the CBN Act and has increased those and means to 10%. because you had 5% there. So let's, if it's true, that has implications for what you've been saying. My other reaction, is I think the IMF rep. You see, when we keep saying that the economy is doing well, GDP has grown 2.19, inflation is coming down. We have to be very careful. Out of 20-something months, only once has it come down. It will go up again because they just increase PMS. So I want to advise that we have to be very careful by this IMF piece of advice. First they advised that, he said that we should floating naira was the right direction, the right thing to do. I want to disagree in our context. You don't float a currency that is not convertible. That's one. And where your economy is not a productive economy, you don't do that. I will not blame the IMF. So I blame the IMF. I also blame people that have been trained in that tradition, just like me. So we have to look at our context, our history, before we put all these policies in place. And when we say global practices, we should be very careful. Inflation targeting has challenges. Let's look at South Africa, Uganda, and Ghana, and see what has come out of their attempt to inflation targeting. I don't have time to go into details. But I think central banks will be guided by theory. When you have negative real interest rates, for those of you who are economists, it means that your ISLM curve has equilibrium at the negative quadrant. That shows that inconsistency between savings and investment. And savings in Nigeria, we know that the rate for savings is negligible. So you should pay attention to investment. That will drive growth. So sometimes, even if you have an instrument like MPL, you don't have to use it. You can pause and see what happens to investment and other policies. I have another question, but I will save time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Three, the lady, Emmanuel, welcome. Three, there's somebody.
Good afternoon, the Chair. I am of the opinion that there should be a coordination between monetary and fiscal policy in Nigeria. But my question is, given the current economic instability in Nigeria, where inflationary pressure are high and exchange rate is volatile, what specific mechanism or strategy can be effectively implemented to ensure better coordination between monetary and fiscal policy? Then number two, how can these strategies be designed to avoid conflicting objectives, such as stimulating economic growth and also maintaining price stability? Thank you.
Thank you. Four. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. My name again is Dr. Francis Ibirasi. I want to, let me not use the word disagree, but I want to stick to exchange rate stability. Foreign exchange availability should be a means to exchange rate stability, because a panelist said it's not exchange rate stability. In short, in theory, exchange rate stability in terms of macroeconomic goals is the fourth after price stability. So when there is enough foreign exchange, you can, through the forces of demand and supply, you can talk of exchange rate stability. That is the goal of macroeconomics, not foreign, not forex. The goal is actually exchange rate stability. Then you talk of balance of payment stability, not forex. Forex is a means to that. That is my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, not two yet. It's the person is four. Yeah, you, and then five. So we answer. I mean, that's right. Then we answer.
Thank you very much, the Chair. My name is Olu Jeremiah, and I have this to say. when things are going wrong in the world, we seem to compare ourselves with the world. But the right things that they are doing to correct their own imbalances, we don't seem to take note of that. I have two issues to raise here. Now, there is nowhere in the world sharing money is an economic policy. There is nowhere. Thank you very much. We talk about global best practice, but there is nowhere in the world, not even in America, they share money the way we share money in Nigeria. And we want to control inflation. That constitutional provision that says that all the money earned be shared between the federal, state, and local government need to be repealed. That constitutional provision is wrong ab initio, and we need to address it. Now, are we not concerned that the federal government says they want to control inflation by increasing tax, yet on the other side they are sharing money on the other side? It's contradiction. So that's where I want to agree that to control Nigeria economy goes beyond the coordination between MPC and fiscal as presenter. We see, to solve Nigeria economic problem goes beyond the meetings that you people do. You need to go to the street and see what is happening. Our kind of inflation is not interest-induced inflation. It's scarcity-induced inflation, for crying out loud. Now, tomato price and yam prices are coming down now. It's not because of your interest rate, oh, let me be frank with you. It is because of the surplus in the market now. By the time surplus goes down and scarcity come up, inflation come up again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. There's someone behind, and then we come back to you. Can we please settle down? Let me. No. There's that guy standing up. Then you come back here. 1, 2, and then there's somebody upstairs. 3. I think we'll take everything and then we react. Who is that upstairs? You. Okay, 3.
Thank you, Madam, for giving me this opportunity.
Can we please settle down and let's listen? Let's have one meeting, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you, the presenter. Mine is also simple. Because it says today all our analysis have been falling on inflation or price control. And I want to ask a question. Why are we not circulating the coins component of our currency? Knowing fully well that every developed countries, including the ones who are using as examples, are floating their coins. Don't you think our coins can help control what we call primary inflation? That is my question. Is it not important that we refloat our coins currency? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Here? Here.
My name is Dr. Aguwu Adolphus, Auditor General for the Federation, retired. I want to speak from the angle of what the law says on fiscal responsibility. The issue of exceeding the limit, ways and means, source of funding, is the basis of the crisis we are in, the instability. All over the world, when you are unable to repay what ought to be short-term funding facility, you now make it a long-term, normal way of funding your budget. What you get is inflation and currency devaluation. So for us, now that the paper presenter says the gap is being closed, but it is turning into a permanent source of funding. And in that situation, the CBN monetary policy cannot be effective, because the issue of a principal-agent coordination will emerge, and in that case, the principal will dictate the direction. So that is why we are where we are. That is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You, and then upstairs. That's the final. But I'm tempted to take one more lady, because we are gender sensitive.
Yes, SP.
So after the upstairs, the lady will talk, and then we finish it.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My contribution is very direct. It will be a direct question to the central bank. Of all the objectives that is stated for you in the law, what is your overriding objective? Now, what are you working towards? Somebody said price stability is so broad. It's not. Even the price stability is defined, is what it is defined. Low and stable inflation is what it is. You, the central bank, you are into aviation, you are into entertainment, you are into agriculture, everything except your core mandate. And you are now wondering why, like Professor Iko said, you float your currency directed, or you got advice from the IMF, you float your currency where there is no productivity. You done that, you have depreciated your currency. What are you exporting? Your oil, both the quantity and the price, exogenously determined. So how are you going to, what will be the benefit to this economy? You are going the easy way of raising the NPR rate every day. I'm asking, if inflation gets to 100%, are you going to raise the interest rate to 90% to continue because you are tracking the inflation? So we need to look at the structure. I think the basic problem is the structure of this economy and the fiscal profligacy of this government, and even before now. You cannot borrow money to be spending anyhow without, I think that doesn't affect the economy. If you look at the last 1 year, you will see the pressure on the domestic currency because of so many things that the people in the political offices want to enjoy. That is the problem where we are now. So if you want to coordinate, you must coordinate holistically. Thank you.
Thank you. Give it to the lady, and then we go upstairs so that we know we're done. Yeah.
Good afternoon once more, everyone. I want to find out from the speaker, especially concerning how they intend domesticating most of their policies. My interest is mainly what the IMF man discussed and said on communication, social safety net, social contract, and social compact. In fact, it pains my heart. Sometimes these policies that have been communicated to the various banks or through the federal government are not domesticated. Most of our people don't have the information. I want to give you an example. I know it's no longer in place during the Naira swap. A lot of people were not aware of what they were doing. What have you put in place, especially in terms of your social contract to the people, to ensure that some of these policies being put in place are effectively communicated to the people? Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to ask in form of question, suggestion, probably we'll call it contribution, in the sense that the issue of exchange rate and inflation has been a continuous trend, a very serious one. I want to appreciate the chair lady, the doctor, the madam, who, as at that time when you were the deputy, you organized a lot of economists. I was part of that team that went, about that around 2009 or there, who provide a lot of solutions, which your government, as at that time, tried to implement. But what I want to suggest now is that we have a policy foundation in terms of economic structure that is devoid of political interference to some extent, that is embedded, inbuilt into the constitution, such that each government will find as a mandate as they come implementing what has been provided, especially what we are discussing in this type of conference. Because what I discovered, just like Professor Sanusi said, the first discussion, second, we are all trying to tend towards the same direction. Professor Sanusi makes us to understand, which I agree, that trying to issue bond, treasury bill to mop liquidity will still put a very big hole. You make that submission in the central bank. So I want to make a suggestion that can't we have a policy structure that can emanate from economic forum like this that will be put on the table with entrenched to the constitution that must be in spite of the level of government or political vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I think we then have time to react. It's I wish we have the whole day to go on. Maybe next time it will be given. It's one of those topical issues that affects even the man on the street. So that's why we've given more time. So we go on. 2 minutes, maybe we give you 3 minutes. You have a lot of bashing to do. So, Dr. Abdulsalami, you go on. And then IMF too will have about 3 minutes. The others I'll give 2 minutes to do. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I think the money I have is to make presentation on a lighter mood. You know, that's the question. But anyway, that's on the lighter mood, really. I think I want to sincerely appreciate all the discussions. That was quite insightful.
Can they hear you?
We'll look at, I want to appreciate all the discussions, and some of the things you raised are very useful to us. I think we would also think about some of these things you've raised. But I will only respond to the rest of the observations. I think it's like a contribution to some of our presentation. We will consider that. But I will respond to the two professors. These are my very erudite professors that are really mentors also. Prof, I think for the dominance issues, I think it's getting better now. If you look at the ways and means, you can see to some extent that there's some kind of control. So I think that dominance is coming. Some kind of control is coming up there. And we can use some of the parameters we saw there to provide an answer to that, because these are two institutions, but I know that with those statistics, it's clear that some kind of dominance is coming down. And I believe that it will get better. And also for Professor Ekotu, sir, in terms of the 5 to 10% thing, I think it has passed the second reading, but I'm not sure it is really out now. But we are thinking that there will be some kind of control at a particular point in time with reference to that. So with that, I want to thank everyone. It was quite insightful. I will take some of the questions back to DG. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I will use some of the extra minutes that Dr. Abdulsalam graciously shared. And I see that the energy in the room is up, so that's very good. This is always what happens when you have a constellation of PhD economics in the same room. And everybody has very, very strong views. So let me start with let's say the backdrop here, right? So the way I see personally the discussion is in the context of managing R minus G, R meaning the interest rate, and G meaning the growth rate. So how do you manage R minus G in an open economy faced with tremendous policy trade-offs? Right, so I said again, R minus G, so which is the interest rate minus growth. In an open economy, because Nigeria has a financial account that is open, and Nigeria faces policy trade-off. That's the ultimate question. Why R minus G? Because this is what drives the slope of your debt dynamic equation, right? This is what will tell you whether your debt is stable or your debt is going to be unstable. The rest is the primary balance if you can generate enough revenue or cut spending. But what is really driving the debt to GDP ratio in many countries is R minus G. And right now your R minus G is not favorable because interest rate is high and growth is low. Per capita growth is 0. Okay? So even if you're growing at 3%, population growth is about it. In real per capita term, you're not growing. So you end up with a nominal R, which is high. Depending on dollar-denominated R or naira-denominated R, you have high interest rates. So just to answer then the questions of the two brilliant professors, one was inflation targeting will have its own challenges when you adopt it without prerequisites. And the other one is floating a currency is almost a suicide, if I can paraphrase what you said, when you cannot grow in a more productive manner. Fully agree with both statements. But in the context of Nigeria, can you defend the Naira when you don't have firepower? That's one question that all as economists we should start thinking about. This central bank was dealing with $6 or let's say even $4 billion FX backlog just a year ago, right? So they were unable to pay at the time around $6 billion. That's why they had the FX backlog. And that created a premium on the sovereign spread of the country because of the lack of firepower at the time back then. Now they have cleared it. Things are more credibility, the backlog has been clear, etc. But can you defend the currency when you don't have enough firepower? You will say Japan does it, Korea does it, Singapore does it, but they have trillions of dollars in terms of FX reserves. So if you want to chase a shadow, you better be as smooth as the shadow, right? So you need to have the firepower to really defend durably. Because when you start defending, then you're going to be you open yourself to speculative attacks. The market will test you. Can you sustain it? And do you even need to sustain it? By the way, Korea exchange rate is exactly like the Naira-dollar exchange rate. And Korea is growing. Okay, they have an export-led model. So I agree with what the two professors said, but just this question, can you defend the currency when your firepower is limited? Can you defend the currency as an oil-producing country when you move from 2 million barrels a day production to 1.3? Where do you find FX? So we can blame the CBN if you want, but one way they have managed to bring FX was by creating an interest rate differential that in the short term can bring liquidity. I fully agree. We need to work on more sustained forms of FX inflows, what I usually call in my interviews organic FX generation. This comes from the real sector through other sectors of the economy, including agriculture. That's why we're talking about productivity. Can you feed the 32 million Nigerians who are food insecure right now when your crop yield is one of the lowest in the world? Nigerian crop yield across maize, across many, many crops, is the lowest in the world. Nigeria spends 0.2% agricultural GDP, so 0.2% of agricultural GDP is spent on agricultural research and development. When you face climate change, you face drought, you face all of this. How do you improve agricultural productivity when your post-harvest losses, there was a Business Day article today, post-harvest losses have hit 3.5 trillion naira, which is the budget of the Ministry of Agriculture over the past 5 years. So how can you feed the population when your agriculture is still very, very unproductive, right? So how do you do all of this? How do you do all of this when your policy space is limited? That's the number one question. Can you do fully counter-cyclical fiscal policy where you engage on big spending and cash distribution all over the place when your debt service is very high? Can you do it when you have pressure on your external accounts? Can you do it when agricultural productivity is very low? So these are the questions that as economists we need to think about. And what we say...
Kristen, you have to round up.
Yes, what we say is basically that the exchange rate stability that was discussed, why I was discussing the importance of focusing on foreign market, FX market stability. So I wasn't focusing on FX inflow stability, I was focusing on FX market stability, which includes exchange rate stability, but when the currency is in excess of what is dictated by the fundamentals. So the stability that you want is the stability that is driven by the fundamental. If your economy is fundamentally stable, your currency will be fundamentally stable as well. And any volatility in excess of that equilibrium, the central bank will fight it, and we will be supporting it. But if your economy is structurally your currency will be weak. And this is dictated by the fundamentals of the economy. And should the central bank fight a structurally unproductive exchange rate just because it has to show a stable naira, I don't think with that firepower you can achieve it. But thank you so much for your comments. We have a few questions about Nigeria, a few fundamental questions that we should all ask ourselves. How do you manage R minus G when we have a huge productivity problem? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Give it to Sanusi. Dr. Sanusi, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Maybe there isn't any question specifically for me to address, but I would like to use my minutes to hammer on the points I started making. You see, in the context of democracy, within the weak institutional settings that we have, the very reason why fiscal and monetary policy coordination fails would increasingly become worse. And this is my point. Under democracy, every political office holder has pressure on them to deliver. So this bias on the fiscal side, which is the tendency for government to want to spend and spend and spend and run deficit and no incentive whatsoever to reduce deficit. That's what deficit bias means. It would continue, like someone said yesterday, without a cap on expenditure. It doesn't max fiscal framework that would enforce discipline on the fiscal side. So what are we talking? Cooperation, coordination between fiscal and monetary authority. It will not happen until and unless within the fiscal authority there is this coordination and harmonization all around the president's political objective, which is what? To stabilize output, to bring down inflation. Those are what the president, whoever is president, would really, really want. However, without coordination within the fiscal authority itself, every man is to himself. The revenue boss is seeking to raise revenue. The expenditure people do constituency projects wanting to spend. Everybody would be doing their own. So what do you need? What are the lessons we have learned right from 1999, Obasanjo? There was a structure for economic governance. I don't think it is working. In the last administration, it did not work. It was absent. There was no chief economic advisor at all. The role of coordinating minister of the economy, which is important in economic governance, was removed. National Economic Management Team, gone. National Economic Management Implementation Team, gone. So every ministry and minister and MDA were on their own. You don't send things to FEC, straightforward, and have them resolved. There's no coordinating unit to see what this policy or how this policy fits into this policy and contributes toward the attainment of the larger political objective of Mr. President. That the attempt we make to make fiscal and monetary authority cooperate would only lead to further dominating the monetary authority and subsuming them back into where we came from. So that is why I said my concern has shifted, given the quantum of research I have done on this matter, from the absence of coordination to fear of erosion of central bank's independence. If we are discussing monetary and fiscal coordination, it must always be in the context of true central bank independence. Let me tell you, there is not one unit in this economy, thank you, where decisions are so systematic based on knowledge and data than the central bank. And there is no one ministry that I know or unit of government that have more qualified economists, well-trained economists than the central bank. So if we have any chance of getting it right, it should be with the people at the central bank. Fiscal authority is not that organized. It's not even that trained. The bureaucracy there is not as... So that's the point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. In closing, since I don't have direct questions at me, I'll just say two things. The first is that when I mentioned that it appears the mandate now of the CBN is too wide, and you need to look at it. And it relates to what Professor Salisu just said. That in the past 4 or 5 years, you've seen that everything was at CBN. It looked like CBN had the power to solve all manners of economic ills in Nigeria. You know, when output is falling, it is CBN. Price stability is CBN. Exchange rate, you know, and the fiscal authorities, so to say, went to sleep. And that's why you saw even the central bank moving into areas which Professor Onwodiok said were not their territory. But they had to do that because of the challenge of price stability. If you knew that output slowing down was affecting inflation, then the CBN had to do something, you know. The second point is what Sanusi also said, that while we discuss cooperation and coordination, it should not negate independence of the central bank. It's something we cannot compromise. You know, so those who can reach the National Assembly, make sure that the cooperation, the new cooperation arrangement and coordination arrangement does not negate independence of the central bank. I do agree that there might be need to curtail some of the discretion around the central bank, you know, so that people don't abuse it, holders of authority don't abuse it, the discretion. But we should not compromise the independence of the central bank. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll just make 2 points. First is that, you know, in the previous government, we normally hear this statement that Nigeria does not have debt problem. What we have is revenue problem, right? I don't have money, but I'm spending. It means that you don't have money, so you have debt problem. And now what that basically shows for us is that the previous government came in 2015, debt to GDP ratio was about 10%. Then it moved to about almost 40-something%, right? So what they were looking at was debt to GDP ratio at a point in time. You can't use that to look at fiscal sustainability. You have to look over time. So what that shows is about the fact that, and that brings me to the point you were making about external debt, the external debt dynamics, which is the interest rate and that of the growth, right? If you are recording growth in an economy and the debt to GDP ratio is moving the way it's moving from 10% to the way it is an evidence of indiscipline. And it's an evidence of unsustainable debt, right? And so if you are now recording growth, the question is that the growth you are recording is expected to trigger employment and that should generate revenue. And so your tax to GDP ratio should be on the increase. But if that is not happening, it means that you are borrowing or you are getting from the central bank. That's what it just means. And what that will end up is the kind of situation we have find ourselves. So in 1994, for instance, around that period, we had a situation where we have inflation running to about 50%. How do we solve that problem? It was simple. We had a contractionary monetary policy, and at the same time, we had a contractionary fiscal policy. It was not just monetary policy that was contractionary, but fiscal policy has to also be seriously contractionary. But the contractionary aspect of fiscal policy, if there is need for us to spend, must go into projects that are productive to increase growth and that will generate tax vis-a-vis to reduce the borrowing level, and then we can think about a sustained, path for our debt vis-a-vis to all that we curb inflation. That aspect is missing, and that is where we need coordination. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I'll just wrap up in 2 minutes. But let me emphasize, I won't discuss, just mention a few things that we probably need to think about more. One is data coordination, which was mentioned initially. There's a lot of data that, incidentally, I've been on both sides, so I know what data looks like, and you can't coordinate when data is wrong or data is absent. When you then have different data on both sides of the divide, you know that so data coordination is important. So many other things that have been mentioned are also important, but I just thought that should be there. And there's one other thing that was mentioned by the IMF, by Christian, and that's social protection. in implementing some of these policies, social protection must come first. I mean, whatever we're doing is for the welfare of people. The coordinations we're talking about is the effects, the impact that it's going to have on people. And so those who are in the fiscal side and even the monetary, when you have proper coordination, we must be able to look at the effect of these things on people. That social protection is important. The social contract that the government has with people is also important. And then monetary cannot solve. We talked about oil linkages, production has gone from 2 to this. You know, these are all issues that affect the outcome of coordination, if the coordination exists, and if it is there. The representative, Dr. Abdulsalam, would like us to know that there's coordination, but the outcome of the coordination is what is interesting, and that's when we believe that there is coordination. Central Bank has been doing a lot, fiscal on its other side, but are these policies coordinated so that we have the best outcome that we need? That conflicts will exist. Conflicts will always be there. It's been there. It will always be there. But the important thing is to ask, some of the examples we are giving, how have they been able to maintain the delicate balance between monetary and fiscal policy? How were they able to do it? They also have politics. They also have all these issues that we have. What have they done that we haven't gotten the political power to do on our own side? It is possible to maintain that delicate balance so that we can have successful outcome. Then credibility is also one issue. We must be credible. Policies must be credible. The people who occupy the positions must be credible. Otherwise, whether you are talking of FPI or FDI, we will not be able to attract anything. So there must always be continuous and constructive cooperation between the central bank and Ministry of Finance. And the effectiveness of this cooperation, let me say finally, depends on the men and women that are occupying the positions. A complex relationship like that of the Ministry of Finance, we've heard all these things on what happens, you know, cannot really be legislated. There will be a legislation that says meet, cooperate, but the individuals could have meetings without having anything discussed. So it depends on who. And when we say who occupies the finance, who occupies the monetary policy, what are they discussing? We can have a meeting without really having a meeting, just because we need to do. So such things will depend on those, and those who occupy those positions must be people who have shared objectives and shared visions, whose ego will not come across them. They must be people who are determined to make it work on both sides. These are things we cannot write. These are things that our Dr. Abdulsalam will not know. There are meetings on FPC, there are MPC meetings, there are all these things. Both sides must be able to make it work. So, distinguished guests, we have come to the close of this session. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to all of you. Our speakers, can we please give them a round of applause? And the audience, for that participation, for the active participation, please give yourself a round of applause, and insightful contributions that we have had. The discussion today has been on coordination of monetary and fiscal policies. The discussions have been both enlightening, both from the speaker side and even from, you know, the audience. It's been thought-provoking, underscoring the importance of harmonizing these two critical pillars of our economic strategy. As we conclude, let us remember that coordination of monetary and fiscal policy is not merely a theoretical pursuit. There's a lot of theory that goes there, but a practical necessity for the well-being of our nation. We must remember that. The insights we have gained today will undoubtedly guide us as we strive to enhance this coordination, fostering an environment where economic policies work in tandem to achieve our common goals. Once again, thank you everyone who made this event possible. Thank you very much.
Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're clapping, I believe you can make it better. All right, I'll invite the president to please take a photograph with our discussant, our presenter, and the chairperson. Also, please join me as I welcome Professor Sherifdeen Adewale Tella to make presentations on behalf of the Nigerian Economic Society. Please put your hands together as he comes forward. All right, Professor Tella will make a presentation to Dr. Robert Asogwa. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you very much. All right, next up, Afindai Sanusi. All right, Dr. Sarah Alade. Sir. Christian Emeke, please. Yes. All right. And finally, Dr. Abidemi Abdul Salam, representing Mr. Muhammad Sani Abu Abdullahi. Thank you very much. Please appreciate Professor Tella as he goes back to his seat. Ladies and gentlemen, very quickly we'll be proceeding to the next aspect of the program. But before we do that, I'd like to recognize the presence of the following people who joined us during the plenary session. First, we have the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Muhammad Idris Malagi, who is represented by the former Chief Press Secretary to the Government of Niger State and is a journalist popularly known as the Voice of the People, if you're familiar with his show on NTA and ASO Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing the presence of Malam Jibrin Baba Ndache. You're welcome, sir. And next we have a Thabo Mbeki Awadi for Public Service and Scholarship and a National Productivity Awadi, who is the Chairman, Federal Civil Service Commission, Professor Adetunji Olaupa. You're welcome, sir. Lovely to have you. Without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going to the next session. The title is The Renewed Hope Agenda, 15 months after What Have We Learned and the Pathway for the Future. Allow me to invite the moderator for today from the African Center for Shared Development Capacity Building. Please join me in welcoming a fellow of the Nigerian Economic Society, Professor Olu Ajakaye. You're welcome, sir. And next we have Malam Jibrin Baba Ndache, representing the Honorable Minister for Information and National Orientation. Please put your hands together for him as he comes forward. Next we have another fellow of the Nigerian Economic Society, Professor Ndubisi Nwokoma. Put your hands together for him as he comes forward. Thank you very much. And last but not the least, Dr. Adeboye Adeyemo. You're welcome, sir. Please put your hands together for him as he comes forward. Ladies and gentlemen, in my earlier recognition, I forgot to add, Malam Jibrin Baba Ndache is the Director General of The Voice of Nigeria. Good to have you, sir. You're welcome. All right, we also have the rapporteur for this session from Veritas University, Dr. Modestus Osonwo. Is he around? All right, sir. So.
Thank you very much, the organizers. I'd like to thank my president for the opportunity to be here and also participate in this particular panel, which I think is extremely important because one of the attributes of proper policy making is as you go along, you monitor and then review and then decide whether you want to stay on course or make some adjustments along the line. So it is very, very, encouraging that this session is part of this program. So I thank the Council of Nigerian Government Society and the President himself for this. Now we have, what happened to him?
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the break in transmission. We have a few cars that are blocking other in the compound. So please, if any of these cars belong to you, please go outside. Your attention is needed. Don't worry, you're safe. Nothing will happen to you when you get to your car. A Camry with an Abuja plate number, Robochi 831TY. Another car with RA172TJ. And, okay, so I think this is the same car, Robochi 831TY. Please, if any of these cars belong to you, kindly go outside and repark. Thank you very much.
Yes, okay, yeah. So, well, thank you very much. We have 1 hour. And we have two discussants, well, two speakers, not discussants. So what we want to do is give each of them maximum 15 minutes. Maximum 15 minutes to make their points so that we can have more ideas from the floor, because this is a review of where we are and what we should do going forward. That's the theme of this session. So the agenda so far, 15 months, and then where are we, and then what do we do going forward. So to kickstart the process, let me ask our DG of Voice of Malam Jibrin to please take the floor.
Thank you, very senior citizens and respected professors that I'm privileged to share this table with, and very serious audience made of very serious Nigerians. Good afternoon. I have sat listening to the panelists and also the response from the audience in the last 1.5 hours. And there's one thing that gladdens my heart, Nigerian, is that whether you are privileged to be in government like I am and the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation I'm representing, or as private individuals, somewhere who are serving government and now also running their own private concern, is that we are united about, which is about the progress and prosperity of our country. And everything that was said either from the audience or from the panelists was focused on how to move Nigeria forward. And I think that is one thing that really gladdens my heart. And this is why Even in my years as a reporter, I always look forward to attending this conference every year. I would like to first apologize on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Information Orientation, who would love to be here, because everything that has been said here is about the economy, but there is also the economy of communication, which one of the audience this spoke to, about communication. The minister left Nigeria to Indonesia to represent the Mr. President at the Indonesia African Summit, and had to join the President and Commander-in-Chief in China. That is why he's not here. If you permit me, I'll read his speech. Let me start by thanking the organizer of this event most sincerely for giving me the platforms to speak on the topic, the Renew Hope Agenda, 15 months after, what we have learned and the pathway for the future. The topic is very important because the Renew Hope Agenda was the core of the campaign during the 2023 general election, and without missing words, was the key reason that Nigerians voted overwhelmingly for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. The Renew Hope Agenda is a comprehensive blueprint for the transformation of Nigeria across multiple sectors. It aims to ensure sustainable development, economic growth, and improved quality of life for Nigerians and prosperity for all. The visionary approach to governance is tailored to achieve the following: reform the economy to deliver sustained inclusive growth, strengthen national security for peace and prosperity, boost agriculture to achieve food security, unlock energy and natural resources for sustainable development, enhance infrastructure and transportation as an enabler of growth, focus on education, health, and social investment as essential pillars of development, accelerate diversification through industrialization, digitalization, creative economy, manufacturing, and innovation, improve governance for effective service delivery. The Tinubu administration is therefore implementing silent policies and programs across all ministries, departments, and agencies to ensure the full attainment of the President's 8-point Renew Hope Agenda. A robust economy is the foundation of any prosperous nation. President Tinubu's Renew Hope Agenda is reforming our economy to deliver sustained and inclusive growth through implementing policies that block wastages, stimulate entrepreneurship, investment, and create jobs for Nigeria. Recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took up the reign of government during one of the most challenging periods in the nation's history. On May 29, 2023, Nigeria stood on the precipice of a total fiscal meltdown, facing economic turmoil of unprecedented magnitude, with widespread poverty, unemployment rate, huge debt profile, and public disillusionment in the system. Faced with this daunting reality, the administration was compelled to take decisive actions and implement long overdue reforms to salvage the economy from the brink of collapse. The urgency of the situation demanded bold and strategic measures to address deep-rooted structural deficiency and systemic challenges that have plagued the economy for too long. Despite the complexes and inherent resistance to change, President Tinubu remained resolute in his commitment to steer the nation towards stability and prosperity. Immediately after taking hold of office, he launched a series of microeconomic reforms aimed at bringing back the economy from the doldrums. The withdrawal of the unsustainable fuel subsidy was a bold measure taken by the president to save Nigeria from paying about 10 billion annually, about 2% of the GDP annually, to the fuel subsidy. This decision, born out of a commitment to fiscal responsibility and a keen eye on national progress, is a testament to the administration's dedication to effective resource allocation and blocking avenue of wastage. The removal of fuel subsidy was a decisive step toward channeling resources where they matter most, impacting sectors critical to national development such as healthcare, education, infrastructure, humanitarian security, and others that directly influence the well-being and prosperity of the citizens. The foreign exchange subsidy also had to go because the entire transaction were fraught with irregularities, which created room for rent-seeking and other forms of abuse. The power sector being implemented by the president is to sustain electricity subsidy to 85% of Nigerian consumers, while withdrawing the subsidy from 15% of the electricity consumer, which cut across high-net individuals, businesses, and industrial clusters, yet they consume 40% of the subsidy. This measure aims to save over 1 trillion annually, which will equally go into other productive sectors of the economy. The successes of the economy recovery plan of President Tinubu are manifesting a reduction of petrol importation into countries by 15%, amounting to 1 billion liters monthly, rising crude oil production and boost in production of LNG from 57% in 2023 to 70% presently. The surge in monthly receipt by states from the Federal Account Allocation Committee, FAC, the emergence of Nigerian Stock Exchange as the most performing bourse in the world, among other successes. The launch of the Consumer Credit Scheme is a revolutionary approach to promote inclusive, boost economic activity, and enhance consumer welfare. This initiative has increased the purchasing power of hardworking Nigerians who now have access to make purchase of a wide range of items on credit. Already, over 1 million Nigerians have applied to the scheme since its inception in 2024. I would like to urge the audience to be open-minded and listen, and then when you have time to respond, I'm also be available to respond to all questions on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation. Answer why it is very important. It's important for us to leverage on the opportunity because one of the audience, person in the audience did talk about opportunities which this government is also providing. So let's not lose sight of the effort that is being made by government despite the challenges, because it's also important that this government from day one didn't pretend that the decisions taken by government will not stop certain hardship. The government was very clear, but it's important that we have opportunity to say this is what has been done, and we can critique it, and then we move forward, and then we take it on. Strengthening national security for peace and prosperity. Strengthening national security is a key focus of the government renewal agenda through enhanced training, re-equipment of security agencies, intelligence gathering, international collaboration, community-based approaches, improve welfare of our security, and also winning war against the insurgency. Boosting agriculture to achieve food security. The renewal agenda prioritizes boosting agriculture production through modern farming technique, access to financing for farmers, and improved infrastructure. These efforts are geared towards ensuring a steady supply of food, reducing import dependency, and increased export in all of that. As you all know, a lot of effort has been there through the area of agriculture, even with the creation of a new ministry under that. There are a lot which, because of time that you gave me, I will just allow. Unlocking energy and national resource for sustainable. Okay, let me go back to agriculture. In the drive towards promoting mechanized farming in Nigeria, the federal government signed an MOU with John Deere to supply 2,000 tractors per year for 5 years under a special finance agreement. The government is set to receive 500 tractors assembled by this group this month and take delivery of the rest by September 2020, this month at least, the rest very soon. The federal government is taking steps to operationalize the Green Imperative Program, a 1 billion bilateral partnership with the Brazilian government to finance the Dutch Bank that will deliver privately managed service centers in Nigeria's 774 local government areas across the country. The Bank of Agriculture and the Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Bank are being recapitalized and re-engineered for more efficiency and several other things in that area. Unlocking the potential of our energy and natural resources is essential for sustainable development. The Renewable Agenda focuses on developing renewable energy sources, enhancing the efficiency of our oil and gas sector, ensuring that the nation's solid mineral resources benefit local communities and the nation as a whole. To harness the nation's resources and diversify the economy for the benefit of all Nigerians, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu executed policy directive to improve the investment climate and position Nigeria as a preferred investment destination for the oil and gas sector in Africa. The deliberate policy was initiated to amend primary legislation and introduce fiscal incentive for oil and gas products, reduce contract cost and timeline, and promote cost efficiency in that area. Infrastructure and transportation are crucial enablers in economic growth. The Renewable Agenda includes significant investment in roads, railway, ports, airport to facilitate trade and movement. The rail line between Port Harcourt and Naba, Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, and others are to rehabilitate the eastern corridor of road, provide alternative means of transportation, and of course, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, the Sokoto-Badagry Expressway, all within the Renewable Agenda, are all ongoing projects across the country which were hitherto abandoned. The Federal Capital Territory is also wearing a new look based on the effort. Education, health, and social investment are pillars of any thriving society. The Renewable Agenda emphasizes improving quality of education, expanding access to healthcare, and increasing social investment, particularly targeted at the poor and vulnerable people in the society. Just like the former Deputy Governor did register, this government is very alive to responsibility, and that is what their decisions and policy directive of ensuring that the most vulnerable in the society do not feel the impact of any of the government policy. In the wake of the removal of the subsidy, the President launched an ambitious social investment program across the country. The program includes commencement of payment of a conditional cash transfer monthly to 15 million poorest and most vulnerable households in Nigeria. Under the Access to Credit Program for Startup and MSME, 50 billion was provided in conditional grant to 1 million nano business across Nigeria, and a new single-digit interest fund to provide 75 billion to support manufacturing enterprise was floating among others. Launch of the National Philanthropy Office, launch of the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency partnership with Sterling Bank, establishing a 5 billion naira single-digit. By building a healthy, educated, and socially secure population, we lay the foundation for a long-term development and prosperity. Under the Tinubu administration, there is a renewed focus on empowering the youth by recognizing them as invaluable to the nation and prosperity through a strategic approach to governance. President Tinubu has prioritized youth inclusive by providing more appointments in government and implementing policy and plan and harnessing their potential for economic development. This approach not only fosters but responsibility among young people, a culture of innovation and creativity essential for sustainable growth. To give effect to Mr. President's vision, Technical Talent Initiative, which is a 3-year partnership with HRS Nigeria, were launched to set up 3 MMT nationwide to empower the youth. With key related to this is investment in digital and creative enterprise program and several other programs such as partnership industry, African Development Bank, Islamic Development to aim to nurture and empower young Nigerians. Diversification is diversification in all of that. I would also like